Hi guys, welcome to another episode of T.N.T. Garage. I'm Tyler, and we're going to go through on how to buy an engine for your vehicle that you don't know runs and where you know you're going to get a good engine. So let's get to it. Okay, so what I picked up here is a small block Chevy. It's 350 cubic inches, Vortec heads, which means it's a GM designation of L31, which is their Vortec designation. The L30 would be the 305 cubic inch. So 5.7 with the greatest GM factory heads you could buy. So I bought this motor as you see it. Obviously it wasn't in a vehicle. It's claimed to have 130,000 miles on it. Now, one way we're going to check to see if this motor's okay to throw in my son's square body is I went to Harbor Freight and got ourselves a Borescope to look in the cylinders. Then we're also going to put pressure to the cylinders to make sure we don't have any valve seating issues or piston ring issues. First things first though, is when you look at an engine, you want to visibly inspect it. You want to look around all the seals, the head gaskets. You want to look inside the ports, make sure you don't have a whole lot of rust, anything like that, random oil leaks. And then this one, with the valve covers being off, you just want to check every rocker, make sure you don't have a whole lot of slop in each and every one. And this one seems to be all right. I don't see any rocker studs pulling out, I don't see any springs broken, and I don't see any push rods bent. Now this is a fairly clean engine, aside from I do have to put a flex plate on it. There is a missing tooth, and I need to get rid of the four-wheel drive oil filter adapter, which will just use a regular small block oil filter adapter in its place with the big canister filter. So next step is I'm going to bring you along while I teach my son how to rotate the engine and look in the cylinders to look for any scratches, wear, excessive rust. It has been sitting, so there will be a little bit of rust in the cylinders. Nothing terrible, and I don't think will cause an issue. So let's grab our borescope and get to it. All right, so what I'm going to have my son do is we're going to go ahead and stick the camera of our borescope down in the plug hole here. As he watches the screen, you see this piston is at top dead center. I don't know how well that's going to show up. So we're going to rotate the engine a little bit to go ahead and bring that piston down, which someone robbed the crank bolt out of this. So just a big screwdriver on the flex plate will rotate the engine enough to look down in our cylinder. Now if you want to go ahead and stick that back in there, kind of let it go down into the cylinder. You see the cylinder wall, pull it back a little bit. See where the piston ends right there? Yep. So if you move the camera just a little bit so you're not looking at the piston, get it closer to the wall there. There we go. See the piston wall? There's your edge of your piston, and there's the cylinder wall. We don't see any deep scratches or anything like that. So we're going to probe every cylinder just like this to make sure we don't have any major issues. Each and every cylinder, and other than seeing some slight marks where the piston rings had sat in one spot, everything looks pretty good. No real big scratches, no deep rust pits, just some carbon on the pistons. Not a big deal. All stuff that we can clean up fairly easily. So now I rotated the engine to where both the intake and the exhaust valve are closed. And how you want to double check this is, one, check for a little slop in your rockers. You move them like that, they're both closed. Or if you can spin the push rods, you know they're closed. So I have the adapter out of our compression test kit, and we're just going to thread it into one of the spark plug holes. You want to get it in there and at least get that seal to seat. Then we're simply, with the help of our little air compressor, we're going to plug in air. You guys hear anything? Now, that is a very good sign. I'm not hearing any air come up through the valley, which would indicate bad piston rings. And I'm not hearing any air out of the intake or the exhaust valve. So we know that the valves are seated on this head and are not going to give us any issues. So I'm going to have my son help me go through the rest of this engine and make sure that each and every cylinder can at least hold its volume of air, which we've got the compressor at about 120 psi, which typically a good motor will produce around 150 psi of total compression or static compression. But this is a very good sign. So we're going to continue along and go cylinder to cylinder and make sure that it's in good shape as cylinder number 1.
Johnny boy, put your hat back on. Now you're out there on your own. Johnny boy, you got a one-way ticket to ride, going south to find a home. Yeah.
Okay guys, through our continuing test, we did find that we do have some seepage past the valves. Now, if I was just going to throw this in a daily driver, it's okay. I mean, you're putting pressure to it under combustion forces. It's probably some gunk or some kind of carbon that's sticking between the seat of the valve and the angled portion of the valve itself. But I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So we're going to look for a cylinder where both of our lifters are completely down, which we have cylinder number 5 and cylinder number 6. And we are going to plug in and see exactly what we have. And I'll grab you guys and show you if we have an air leak. Number 1 was in great shape. What? Okay, you guys hear that air flowing? Both valves are closed. And you can hear the air. See that? Same thing on the exhaust side. So that's telling us that our valves aren't seating, but we're not getting any air up through the valley of the engine, which is a good sign that our rings are in good shape. So we're going to continue today cleaning up this block. I have a set of Vortec heads that I'm going to drop off at the machine shop so we don't have this issue. Not a killer. You could drive it forever like this, but definitely something that you want good performance and you want something super reliable. I'm going to send those set of heads in to get a 3-angle valve job. Probably change the rocker studs to the threading type for future build so he can put a cam in it if he likes. And with these press-in style rockers, you're just not going to be able to run that much of a camshaft with those. Okay, so we know we need some head work, but we're going to continue checking this engine out. Number 1 is I got to knock this oil filter adapter off. One, it was for a 4-wheel drive OBS Chevy, so it's got the kick-out filter with the oil cooler lines. That just ain't going to fly in a square body. So, 2 13mm bolts, we'll pop that off. Then we're going to drain the oil and look inside the oil pan and see if this is a 2 or 4 bolt main block. My guess is if this is the original block that came out of a half-ton truck, it's gonna be a 2-bolt. Some of the over 8,600 gross vehicle weight 350s were the 4-bolt, like the one I'm putting in the Camaro. So let's pop this off first. Grab our 13 mil on our Milwaukee Impact, and we're gonna drop this adapter off, and maybe not make a mess if we can help it. Ah, there we go. So there's your 4-wheel drive oil filter adapter. Now, grab a 15, and we're gonna drop the oil out of this sucker. There we go. Of course, that's the water from when I tipped the motor over. So any of the coolant went ahead and went down in the valley, so I'm not worried about the contents of the oil pan. See, there we go, there's the oil.
Hey.
We're gonna let that drain out. Hopefully the dog doesn't drink it. So let that drain out. We're gonna look up in that oil pan and see what we got, but we don't have any metal filings or anything on the end of the drain plug, which is a good sign, because most of these are magnetic and they will pick up any fines or anything like that. And wiping it, I don't see any metal, so we can be fairly certain that the bearings in this engine are in good shape. Of course, even though we look down in the cylinders with the Borescope, once we pull the heads off to replace them, we'll see what they really look like. And if we have to knock it apart quick to hone it and re-ring it, no big deal. The parts are cheap. You can get a re-ring, re-bearing kit for a small block Chevy for well under 300 bucks and never have an issue again. So we're gonna let the oil continue to drain. Nice milkshake we got there because I'm an idiot and let the motor tip over. But we'll grab our Borescope and see just what kind of small block we have here. So we're going to turn it on. Once the oil drains down a little further, which kind of milky there, but not a big deal. Oh, yeah, that's harder to turn than I thought. It's riveting stuff watching oil drain. It's like watching paint dry, only worse.
Yes.
So I'm going to continue to let this drain. We'll be back with you in a second once she's empty. We drain the oil. Got a chance to look up in the oil pan, and with this particular camera, I can't get a good enough look to see if it's a 4-bolt or a 2-bolt, but either way, no matter, strong enough for what we're doing. So now, even though we're going to pull these heads off and replace them, I figure we'll give my son here a little bit of time to clean up this block, and let's get at least the block painted. Now the great part is he can just fog over the head bolts and everything, because we're just going to replace the heads and we'll paint them when they get here. But gives him a little pride in this ride. And what color did you decide? The Chevy orange, not the blue? All right, so we're going to paint it the classic Chevy orange instead of the corporate blue. So he's got the wire wheel, and I will show him how we're going to clean up this block. So put your glasses on, son, and let's start up here on the front. So bring the drill here, and you're going to want to work around and start here. Hold it vertical to the surface, and then just work around until you can see it's getting the rust, the scale, the paint off. You could probably put this on setting 1. It goes a little slower. There you go. Either setting you want to use, but there you go. You see he's cleaning it up. We're going to have him work over the block section, not so much the heads. And timing covers plastic, so we don't have to clean that. But he can go down the sides of the block, get this all cleaned up and prep for paint. So once he gets it clean, we're gonna hit it with some brake clean and then really mask it off, get it ready to paint. So here we go. As you can see, my son did a phenomenal job cleaning up this block. I mean, we'll grab you. Just look at the job he did. Just amazing. Got into every crevice, everything. He did a phenomenal job. So, our next adventure is we're gonna mask the block off, at least the water pump ports, and get the valley partially covered up, stuff some tape in the cylinders for the spark plug holes to make sure you don't get any paint in there. And you can keep it pretty simple. You don't have to work too hard. Just cover up your ports. And then you can peel the paint back like this. Keep it out of your bolt holes, but still get paint where you want it to be. Just fold it over on itself. And we can clean that up later for gasket sealing purposes. So we definitely want to get our water pump ports covered for sure. And the bolt holes. There we go. And we're going to cover our valley so we don't get any paint down in the valve train. Doesn't have to stick perfect, it just has to stick. And since we're going to be replacing the heads, we'll just fog some paint up on them so we don't have any issues. All we need to do is get enough of it in there to stop the paint from going in the valley, which a little control with your paint can will also help. That's really the main areas. Just keep it from flowing over, and then we'll take some shop rags. We'll use the wasted ones. And we're going to stuff each and every plug hole just to keep the paint out of our cylinders. Just in case he shoots a little high with the paint can. Now he wire brushed this entire motor, and we cleaned it and scrubbed it with brake clean. He's already got that head taken care of, so I'll let him continue plugging the spark plug holes. And what'd you do with that can of paint, son? Over yonder? Okay. So, nice thing about engine enamel is you don't necessarily need primer. You're just adding more steps. This stuff sticks to literally everything. And now the key, and I'm showing you guys as an audience and him as well, is one, make sure you got a good spray. Now, when you go to paint the engine, and I'll bring you guys over here, you don't want to cake it on at first. You want to do a couple light coats, just just missed the motor in a sweeping motion. So you want to, just like that, just to where you get the color, you just want to fog it on, like so. You could probably add a little bit up here. You want to make sure you see a dusting of the color, smooth sweeping motions with a trigger pull each way. And that's the same thing that you go over the top, and how that is all involved. So we're going to start with a couple of light coats. I'm going to let my son paint it because after all it's his engine, and we'll go from there. Here you go, man. Alright, now that we got our two fog coats covered, the key is you're going to lay two heavy coats behind it. And you want to lay them heavy, but not too heavy because you don't want runs. So shake it up a little bit. You know, if you're really good, you can stick it in your belt and twerk. That would do it too, but I'm not that guy. So clean your nozzle by flipping it upside down. And you want to do even passes about 4 inches away. Just there you go. Just like that. Just watch your pattern as you go. If you got to come back and cover it with the last pass, that's just fine. You can see, and then when you have stuff that's not on the same plane as what you're painting, you just come in and just fog it a little bit, and then work your way across up in the oil pan rail, and work your way down, and just watch the pattern as you paint. And you don't want to move super fast, but you don't want to move slow enough to produce runs. So, you get all that? Well, it's up to you. You can start on the passenger side of the block. Remember, nice, about 4 or 5 inches. Slow, steady pass from front to back, or just do full passes. Alright guys, well, we got our engine block painted up, and I know you guys are saying, why'd you paint the engine if you're going to replace the heads? Because you know what? I like shooting a horse and burning the carriage at the same time. So, main reason is it gives him a little bit of practice on painting this engine block. And then once we get the heads, we can paint them, throw our final coat on the block, get it ready to go once we get our performance parts. Now, the future modifications for this engine is we're going to leave the valve train alone. We're going to go throw a Holley performer on it. And, you know, I can hear you guys already complaining. We're going to put a quadrijet on it. We're going to have a video on rebuilding one of them. But we'll have the Holley performer, RPM with a quadrijet, set of long tube headers. This motor, well, considering I'm going to take the heads, probably have 202 valves put in them, should make 275, 285 horse, which is plenty for a new driver like this young man here. But along this whole process of building this engine and building that square body, he's going to be here every part of the way, even though he doesn't know how to be in front of a camera. Because, I mean, look at him. He's teenagers, right? So, thank you guys again for watching T.N.T. Garage. And Mini T.N.T. because same initials, just that's where it comes from. But thank you very much for watching. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe. You can find me at T.N.T. Garage on Facebook and T.N.T. Garage on Instagram. That's T.N.T.Garage. So, check us out. Thank you again for watching. Say bye, Trace.
Goodbye.
Bye, Trace.
Isn't he an exciting human being? Trust me, when we get this truck done, he'll be a little more excited.